LSU Odyssey alive in the house. How's everybody doing? Lane Kiffin gave a very, very intriguing press conference today. Had a lot to say about a lot of the facets of the kind of wild transition that LSU football just went through. And LSU athletics getting, Verge Osberry, new athletic director, but he kind of gave I guess a refresher press conference where it's not quite introduction to spring, which will be next month, but this is kind of the post madness of the portal and high school recruiting, signing day, all of that kind of wrapped into one, and it was very cool to see Kiffin talk into the media and kind of see his style carry over to LSU, where he's not going to be a politician. I mean, that first press conference, yes, he wanted to make an impression, that type of a thing, but like this, this is someone who is a football guy. He's not a politician. He's not going to try and win the press conference and, feed us what we want to hear, which is, with the passage of time, looking back, what a lot of the Brian Kelly and Coach Orgeron eras were about was just, you know, a lot of stuff that was said that never quite came to pass. A lot of good intentions, but possibly no plan, no execution, and some catastrophes in some ways. And you got Kiffin at this press conference who it's not like he looks like he doesn't want to be there or that he's disinterested, but it's that this isn't my thing. My thing is football, and you could see that and sense that just emanating from him just from the start. I just really wanted to point that out from the get-go that LSU have a football guy now. You have a football guy. You don't have a politician kissing the babies, trying to, actually, Brian Kelly didn't kiss any babies. He was like hiding behind security and being Elvis, basically, in The Wizard of Oz. But Kiffin, more down to earth, more football X and O's oriented. And it's for an LSU fan, it has to be refreshing. I can sense it. There's something that there's a different feeling in the air. It's not that LSU is going to win a championship this season. I can sense it no matter what. But there is a feeling in the air that LSU are headed in the right direction for building something that can be a sustainable potential powerhouse. When you look at a landscape in college football where Indiana are winning titles, they just won a title where there's no more Nick Saban. The SEC seems to be a toss up every single season. And this is a moment where LSU can really stake a claim and build a type of dynasty with Kiffin, the resources behind him, all these things pulling in the right direction. But as he acknowledged, another thing that I liked about him was he said, yeah, this is all great, what we've accomplished and what we've done during this transition, but the hard work begins now. We have to do this on the field. We have to produce a team that can, compete and contend. And it was beautiful to hear that. And we're going to play some clips because there was some really interesting responses I thought he had. But the opening, he kind of goes through the portal process and the transition and, you know, basically gives it up to the environment around LSU and some of the pieces that were already in place in the athletic department, in the football program, the football ops, who were really big for LSU pulling off the number one rated transfer portal class in such a high school recruiting class as well. And in order to do that, you needed basically the whole community pulling together. And that's what he said at one point, where he's, this, there's something different. It's very interesting where he said the just different thing, and it's creating an aura around LSU that's already there, but it needed to be activated, and I feel like Kiffin is doing that.
His place of a ton of turnover, especially last year, and this time a year ago having a much different roster and turnover, and all kinds of players go to the NFL, and I think 2 returning starters, and we're able to do what we did. So this is a great challenge. Glad that we're here doing it. The whole town was amazing in recruiting to help bring all these kids in, and the hospitality that they showed them at the hotels, restaurants, on campus was unbelievable, and they could feel it. There were all kinds of meetings at the end of the official visits when you talk through, okay, what did you think about your experience, parents, the players, and they said, really, it was amazing. The LSU experience and the Baton Rouge experience and how they felt coming here to visit was a huge part. I know a lot gets played about NIL and those things, but a ton of them talking about a huge part of why they came here is the way that they felt on their trip here to the city of Baton Rouge and to LSU, how they treated them.
And that's something that NIL can't purchase. That's something that you can't really sell on a recruiting trail. It's something that you have to experience on the visits. And it's why LSU are always successful with these visits. And then, maybe the player decides something else. Maybe there's a bigger bag somewhere else. But no matter what, people, recruits across the board, are always saying, and their families, that LSU was a hell of an experience. The restaurants, the hotels, as Kiffin is explaining, but then the state-of-the-art football ops, just the difference, the level of resources that LSU has in comparison to, say, an Ole Miss, which Kiffin had pointed out, which Winnie Watkins pointed out, where, LSU has advantages that are absolutely freakish. Like a guy like Jack Marucci is there on your staff. Incredible. And Kiffin, went in talking about some of the guys they got out of the portal, all these things. And what I loved was he gave, we teased some information on the last show that we did where we said there's good news on the Sam Leavitt front. We're going to talk about that tomorrow. And I was saying, like, it's not as bad as people think. There's some really good optimism going in that direction. And then Kiffin broke the news before we could. Kiffin goes up there and he says Sam Leavitt will be able to participate in 7-on-7 at least during spring. He won't be doing any of the team stuff, Kiffin says, at least right now. But he will be able to participate in 7-on-7, which is just fantastic news. That means that recovery is accelerating a lot quicker than a lot of people were expected. There's a lot of fear, a lot of trepidation, and we'll have to see how it continues to recover. That Liz Frank, that ankle injury, and how it affects him when he's fully recovered and when he comes back. But all intents and purposes, it's the best case news that you could have in this situation, and Kiffin made sure to point that out. Also, it was who Kiffin retained that was really a big part of what they're doing. And when it comes to Blake Baker and Corey Raymond, you really heard Lane Kiffin explain why he felt he had to bring those two back, why they were so important, why they were so key. And it's something that is just a no-brainer.
See what Blake came in and was able to do in that first year of changing that, how dramatically that shifted. That's good coaching. And I thought it was important to keep him. I'd always liked him, always heard good things about him, even talked about hiring him somewhere else we were at, and had conversations with him before. And Corey's, that's just a no-brainer. I mean, when you're able to recruit people to someone, Saban used to say this to me, you know, even if they're older, I'm not saying Corey's older, but even if they're older, a coach, and they coach these certain players along the way, they become really easy to recruit to. And so, Corey, you get a really unique combination because you have somebody you can recruit to that has had great players after great players after great players, but then somebody that also still recruits that way. It's a really good combination. So if I get in front of a corner, I get to say, hey, you get to go play for him, but then he recruits the same way that he did 20 years ago. And it's the reason why I keep signing great players, and they want to come play for him. So that.
And that says it all. That says it all right there. Corey Raymond, I mean, okay, we'll say it like this. Lane Kiffin hasn't had a history of like stellar DBs on his rosters. Just unbelievable DBs and stuff. He hasn't really had that luxury. And then you think if, oh my God, you would have let a guy like Corey Raymond go the second you join LSU, what a disaster that would have been. And no, that was not going to happen. And thank God it didn't happen because you would have lost some big pieces to the roster if that happened. Such a crazy thing. But Blake Baker as well. You had to keep both of these guys. You had to. Blake Baker constantly, consistently improves the defensive side of the football. You can't question that. There's no questioning that. Blake Baker has absolutely deserved every plaudit he's gotten because he always improves the product. And so LSU holding offensive opponents to 19.8 points per game last time. Maybe the bowl game pushed that up a bit, but it was around, you know, they were holding a bunch of teams under 20 points, a bunch of teams to just 10 points. So this is a defense that can get even better, especially with the pieces you added. You lost a guy like AJ Halsey. You lost maybe some of the depth at defensive tackle. A guy like Jacoby and Guillory, who actually had a pretty good season, was coming on. But upgrades everywhere you look. Upgrade after upgrade after upgrade defensively, everywhere you look, especially in the pass rushing department. You have to think LSU, getting the number one edge rusher, and then also bringing in the number one freshman defensive lineman who's going to be an edge pass rushing presence in Lamar Brown and then Princewell. I mean, that is quite a haul. That is quite an outrageous pass rushing haul. The defensive tackle spot is kind of where I'm more worried, but Jalen Brown, Jordan Ross as well on the edge, Gabe Relaford. You are stacked as far as pass rushing, as far as getting to the quarterback. You are stacked. And then you got Whit Weeks, TJ Dottery, Davon Keys as your linebackers. Incredible right there, that trio. Deshaun Spears, Tamarcus Cooley, Ty Benefield, who had 107 tackles, 8.5 TFLs, has racked up interceptions, forced fumbles, pass breakups. He does it all. He stuffs the stat sheet, much like AJ Halsey coming from a small school. Tested, productive, ready to take that next step. We'll see if he does, but if he's even half as good, half as productive as he was this last season here at LSU, in a secondary that's already got Deshaun Spears, Tamarcus Cooley, I mean, that's going to be effective enough. But my point is that you've retooled this offense. You've retooled the quarterback room. Sam Leavitt, injury, looking like it's headed in the right recovery direction. Houston Longstreet behind him. and then this defense as well. Um, you've really got to like where the direction of this is going, the roster that Kiffin has put together.
Sources of you can give them to go in, and a coaching change is a really big one. Kids want to go in, gets attention, puts them in an open market. So, yeah, the resources, I know definitely helped. I wouldn't say that necessarily because the number of them, but the ability to. And it's not just resources when you talk about the financial resources. It's, to me, the resources of they come on the visit and they walk in to Tiger Stadium, and it's LSU, and they see all the great players that have played here before, and they see the magnitude of the place, and I know I said it, now it's like floating around here, but as they come to visit, they say the same thing. Like a lot of times in that Sunday meeting, that final meeting that you have with them, what'd you like? It's just different. It's a different feeling when you come here, and that's not the financial piece. It's just LSU, and they go down and they walk through the cafeteria here and the student athletes, and you feel like you're in an Olympic training site because you just look at it. Here's the best baseball players in the world, and the best women's basketball players, and it's just a feeling that they got around here, and I don't know if that's really considered resources, but that's a tremendous value into these guys deciding to come here. And I think it kind of, someone asked the other day about,
Okay, that is an important part for me because I feel like that's a big part of the picture here, the philosophy. LSU are being run like a pro team, y'all. It's been a while. It's been a while. LSU are being run like a pro team once again. Last time that happened, LSU won a national championship. Every time that has happened, or every time you had a professional side of the football, say like the 2023 offense, with such a pro ready list of guys on that offense, when you have that at LSU, success is going to follow. When you have a defensive coach like Blake Baker, when you have offensive minds like Kiffin, Charlie Weiss Jr., Joe Cox, George McDonald, you have this collection of guys all together. You have James Craig returning to the fore to help with Eric Walford on the offensive line. You know, Lance Guidry backing up Jake Olson at the safeties and DB's position. You have also a really good backup shadow staff kind of analysts. And you see that with this roster put together, ton of veteran leadership, but also a ton of transfer portal signings that are guys that are younger, that are redshirt freshmen, redshirt sophomores. Um, really some guys with 2 or 3 years of eligibility, as well as key veterans and guys with a lot of experience and things like that. But of course, there's a lot of young talents that Kiffin had brought through the portal, guys that he can grow with on this roster, guys that can grow with him in his scheme. And I think that's a smart way to do it. I think that's the right way to do it. And I think as long as the evaluations are correct, then that's going to pay maximum dividends, because it's not just we got Mansour Lane shut down corner, but then he's gone. We got AJ Halsey. We finally have an absolute freakish safety. Oh, but then he's gone. You know, a lot of these guys, Winnie Watkins, he's going to be, he was a freshman at Ole Miss. He's got three more years of eligibility left. There's plenty of guys on this list of guys that LSU have brought in that have multiple years of eligibility. But also, you retain the right guys. A guy like a Whit Weeks, I mean, wouldn't have been hard to retain him, but you made sure of it. His brother Zach Weeks as well, Davon Keys, Harlem Berry, Caden Durham, DJ Pickett. You made sure you kept the best pieces. Braylon Moore, and you retooled your running back room with the depth. Some guys who played for some big schools but were kind of run off. But you still have that two-headed monster at the tip with Caden Durham, who, as we reported, entered the portal and then pulled his name out of the portal after talking with Kiffin and Billy Glasscock. And then Harlem Berry, who there was some tons of talk of him hitting the portal, but he was able to resist all advances from Frank Wilson, who was Ole Miss bound, and everyone expected Berry to go to Ole Miss. That did not happen after Kiffin and Billy Glasscock made sure to speak with him and make it known. But there's a professional vibe about this roster, about this program, about this team, and it's very intriguing, very exciting because, sure, we haven't seen any of this produce wins yet, right? We haven't seen LSU win games because of all these signings. We haven't seen LSU win games because of all these portal additions. We don't know if this can even work because we've seen situations where it didn't work, right? But what else are you going to? Are you not going to even attempt this like a Clemson? Are you not going to try it and make this happen, especially when there's a way to do it where it's not just paying for mercenaries? LSU went out and got a bunch of guys who want to be at LSU, a bunch of guys who want that opportunity, who like the environment, who like the school. You know, guys who maybe LSU was their dream school and now they've got that opportunity. Guys who maybe just wanted to follow Kiffin and here they go. You know, there's a reference and cross range of guys who've come to LSU for different motivations, but it all kind of boils down to the same thing. They want to win national championships. They want to go to the NFL. They want to be able to provide generational wealth for their families. And LSU, with the branding, with the pedigree, with the profile, every connection, the resources, and now you're seeing NIL money skyrocketing to a stratospheric level. All of those components together, to me, just says like, why would you go anywhere else? Sure, Kirby Smart, Georgia. Maybe you want to play for that guy, something like that. Maybe you're from Georgia. You know, the Texas schools, maybe they can pay $3 or $4 million more, some sickening degree. Maybe Phil Knight, Oregon, Dan Lanning, some type of Nike thing. Maybe that pulls you, but you can get a Nike, deal. You can get a Nike love fest at LSU as well. So it's like, why go anywhere else? And I think Kiffin does. He basically said that with his press conferences. We didn't have to sell it as much as we had to guide these recruits on a tour and be able to show them what is possible. Not just like, hey, we're going to talk about it and try and sell you on it. And then, yeah, you want to come? It's here, come experience this craziness with me. Look at this world LSU has created in the football ops. Look at this crazy domain of futuristic sports medicine and footballing, um, learning devices, the virtual reality center, all the recovery centers, all this stuff that is leaps and bounds ahead of many other schools across college football. from a facilities level, it's hard to even compare or beat LSU. And that is because it boils down to LSU is surrounded by people who care and give a damn. And that is what you feel from Kiffin the most from this press conference. He cares. He wants to win. He wants to take LSU back to where LSU rightfully belongs. He's ready for this challenge. He's ready for this moment. He's got all the resources. He's got all the staff. He's got a lot of tantalizingly um, promising roster pieces that he's brought together all together on this 2026 team where, if this team doesn't contend, if this team doesn't seriously compete, I'll be shocked. And it is year one. And there is a lot of youth still on this roster, like I pointed out. But you just have a feeling that there's kind of the right mix. And on paper, it looks really good. But that's never, won any games. But there was a question asked by On Three's Shea Dixon to Lane Kiffin that I thought was fantastic and really let Kiffin kind of unleash on this really, really cool answer to this question that kind of shows why I I think he's activated the LSU fan base better than anyone outside of like Coach O in 2019. Like no one's been able to activate the fan base to this level since 2019 Coach O. But I think it has to do with this. I think it has to do with this relentlessness and this pursuit of, hey, you know what? We're LSU. Why aren't we doing this? Why don't I go get on a plane and go after this kid? We have the plane. Let's go. And it's like, you didn't see that from Brian Kelly. You just didn't. And you watched a lot of great players go to other teams because of that. And those guys usually ended up beating LSU in some big games. But I thought this was a brilliant question from Shea Dixon. And then Kiffin with a really, really cool answer that kind of gives a good peek into why he has the minerals for success at LSU, despite what all of his detractors say. No one can deny what he's about to say here.
What's been your approach, or did it click over time to say when a LEAVITT or a Seton leaves campus and he doesn't commit or sign, that you say that's not good enough, I'm getting on a plane, I'm going to see him? That's not commonplace with coaches around the country.
I don't know. I just know how I do things. There's a good and bad to it. I'm extremely competitive, and I don't really do well with no. So that just makes me more competitive when someone says no. So sometimes that happens in recruiting. They say no, but I think that's my job. That's my job to LSU. And kind of on a different note, when people ask about the social media and why do you do it, everything that I do is for the place of where I coach at, for that school, for those players and those fans. And that makes me not very liked a lot of times by other ones. And so it's the same in that. Like my job, I'm hired here, is to go sign the best players, regardless of whether that means I got to go get on another plane or find a plane and show up somewhere and walk through Knoxville Airport, to find the guy. And that's just kind of how I work. And I like that, because I think that wires in really with Louisiana people, because I think that's how they think. Like, no job's too small, and find a way to go get it done. So I think it's a good match.
And you see what I mean there. It really is. It really has been a good match so far, and that hasn't won games yet for LSU, right? But you can't help but feel extremely optimistic about where this is going, because you have a driven head coach, you had driven donors who are ready to really shell out more money than has ever been issued for any LSU team, and get that number one class. You get a number one quarterback, number one offensive lineman, number one edge rusher, a top 10 quarterback. You fill all these spots with such illustrious talents, but also guys who can make an impact and a difference, guys who are good, strong depth pieces as well. You retain the right guys, you retain the right coaches. This is a team that can really do some special things going forward. But Paul Tarver, he has a very interesting comment, because it's something that Lane brought up. Lane said, "Hey, we got to be realistic too, that this is going to be a lot of hard work to get this team to gel, but then also to get this team to be able to win. And then you're taking on opponents, maybe opponents that can line up against you and be able to go toe to toe with you, and it's going to be a blood match. And Paul Tarver, my main man, says nobody asked Lane about new crazy playoff schedule that stretches to January 25th of 2027, almost a month between quarterfinals and semifinals, then 10 days to the championship game. Kiffin did. I'm not sure if it was at this press conference or what, but Kiffin did give a statement about that. He said it was ridiculous. He said it was like, oh, so they made the schedule even worse this time. Good for them. Like, he was like shocked and dismayed that they made the schedule even worse after, what happened this last time. But it's almost like they want the chaos. It's almost like they want the controversy and the madness that happened with the whole Kiffin head coaching search, because it was such a big story that really provided college football a lot of eyeballs nationally. Not just, it was on CNN, it was on all these crazy different stations. It wasn't just college football centric media that was covering the Kiffin phenomenon's story. So I think they almost want the chaos, because why else would you do this? And it creates a ton of unnecessary drama. It forces really quick decisions. It As you saw with Lane Kiffin, he couldn't coach his own team in a playoff run. And who knows what we could be talking about Kiffin in the press conference today with a title ring on his finger. Because Ole Miss without him, with Pete Golding, just barely lost in a semifinal game. Like, with Lane Kiffin, maybe they win it all. Who knows? And we'll never know. And it's really sick that happened to Lane Kiffin and to Ole Miss as well, that they had to force him out because they had to move on. But at the same time, they couldn't have LSU's next head coach in the building. All this stuff, I get it from Ole Miss's perspective, but it was such a disaster for the schedule, and yet it's still a disaster. But also, hey, LSU, you know, really, really tough schedule this season. One of the toughest schedules anybody has on paper for anyone, but a lot of great home games. So a lot of powder keg home game moments to ignite the Kiffin era. And so it's going to be a very exciting season, very interesting to see just how Kiffin assimilates within the LSU machine, how he creates his own culture, how he kind of imprints his own image upon this team, which, has some guys who played for Kelly still on it, and how those guys kind of become Kiffin players. How Whit Weeks is going to be playing for, the dad of the girl he's going out with. There's some interesting plot lines going into the season for this team, but really a collection of damn good players. and a mandate, a huge investment, this team should be making the playoff for sure. And that should be the basement expectations here. LSU should be in the playoff every single season. You spend $40 million on the roster. It's almost a 200 something $50 million project. You have to make the playoff. And not only that, you need to go on a run. Like, we can't set these expectations so low. Then again, I understand that you are bringing a bunch of disparate pieces together, and there are a bunch of ties that bind this roster together, even with a bunch of portal guys. You still have a lot of pinnacle pieces that are returning and kind of can help some of the new guys understand what the LSU way is all about. But a very intriguing Kiffin press conference, and we can't wait to hear more from him. Hopefully, we can be able to be there for the next press conferences when spring practice begins next month. We really are desperate to get out there and cover the team, boots on the ground, like we've been able to do in the past. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us. Absolutely thrilled to be doing this show for you guys. Absolutely honored and feel blessed to have the platform I do. And you guys are the reason I do this. The number one fan base in the country deserves the best, absolute best content. You guys get it because LSU has so many amazing media members and people producing great stuff. And we're 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 blessed to even be maybe one of those that you listen to or watch or read. Definitely, if you're saying like, "Hey, there wasn't a video today," chances are there's an article or two that is going to be on the website. So if you want that type of LSU content, always LSUOdyssey.com, where you're going to be able to find it. LSUOdyssey.com. Visit and subscribe at LSUOdyssey.com/subscribe. Help us be able to um, get this thing going. The Twitter is now at LSU Odyssey. We'll fix that. But um, yeah, everybody, go Tigers. Hell of a interesting press conference. Excited to hear what you guys have to say and what some of the other fans and media members' takes are on this press conference because we haven't listened to anything. It's been kind of a crazy day since we watched the press conference live, and we haven't really heard what anyone else has kind of thought about this. So interesting to kind of dig deep on that. So everybody, thank you for watching and listening, and go Tigers.